This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much.
All right, Geek Leaders. Today, I'm honored to have Allison Shapira on the show. She's the author of a book called AI for the Authentic Leader. She's been a communication expert for many years, helping people, leaders communicate effectively. And we're going to talk about how this new age of AI is affecting that and how we as leaders need to be, what we need to do, I guess, in general. Anyway, with all that being said, Allison, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be with you.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background, how you got into speaking, communication, and coaching people.
I trained as an opera singer. So that was my first career path, was pursuing opera. And then I decided it really wasn't the right path for me. And I made it into the field of diplomacy, where I realized everything I learned as an opera singer actually made me a really good speaker and an even better coach of other speakers. So I wound up founding my own company, teaching at first public speaking, but then more broadly, how do leaders communicate as they move into more senior positions? And that's how I got started in the field of communication. And today I teach communication at Harvard Kennedy School, working with graduate students up to heads of state. And then I have my own advisory firm helping leaders build trust and connection through the way they communicate.
So let me ask you this, with the use of AI that's out there, and you just, published a book on this, but how have you seen communication change, whether it be written or verbal communication over the past couple of years?
I've been studying AI for about 8 years and then using it for 5 years before ChatGPT and generative AI to help people improve their communication skills. What I've seen over the past few years, especially since my book came out recently, is a significant decrease in the authenticity of writing that I see in social media and in the emails that I receive. So people are literally just copying and pasting from whatever language model they're using into an email and hitting send. And as a result, you look at the message and you can't see the person behind the AI.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I've seen so many emails that get sent to me, and I'm like, I know this was not you. This is ChatGPT or Grok or something else. It's not you. That's for sure. And part of it's just simple things like, you're right, they don't feel authentic. And I'm not sure all what that is. I know some of it's pronunciation. Sometimes people are putting things in there that I know normal people don't write with, but there's more than that too. What are some ways that you can take advantage of tools like this, LLMs, but not lose that authenticity?
It's such an interesting point because some people are authentically terrible communicators and they need AI's help with their emails or their presentations and messages. What I'm talking about is when you look at a message and you can't feel the human behind it. Because in a professional setting, it's not just about mastering the technical skills, it's our ability to build trust and influence with the people we lead and the people we work with. The way we do that is showing up in a way that's true to our values and beliefs, and our communication is what demonstrates that. So I'm not seeing people do that on the whole, but I'll tell you a few ways in which you can do it.
Sure.
One of the ways you can use AI to be more authentic, not less, is first and foremost to let AI serve as a mirror showing you the jargon that you're using. So I'm sure many people in your audience use a lot of technical jargon. I do myself. And when we do, our words lose their power and meaning. And especially as we move into more senior positions, we're no longer just managing other subject matter experts. We have to communicate to other people outside of our area of expertise who have to make budget decisions or buying decisions based on the information that we give them. And if they can't understand what they're saying, what we're saying, they're going to say no. So AI can be really helpful when you put a message into a large language model and you say, identify the jargon. Here's the kind of person I'm communicating with. Help me understand which parts of my argument or language might turn them off, because if they really don't understand the message, they're not going to take action on the message or on what we're recommending. So that's one particular way in which you can use AI to actually remove the blocks you don't realize you've put in place. And I'm happy to go through some others as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear some more. One of the things that I've done, which is very similar to what you're talking about here, is I've used it to kind of give myself confidence when I'm going to have like a one-on-one or a conversation with someone that, as you go up in leadership, you start to manage people that maybe you've never worked in that role before. So you're not fully understanding, that you're saying things the right way. So I'll have, I'll set up a prompt where I'm like, pretend like you are this person, and I'll describe all the attributes of the person that I know without, giving any PII information, of course, and kind of like a job role, and you've had this much experience, and we're about to have a one-on-one, and here's our interaction, and I'll just talk to it and get some feedback. Now, it's not like, it's definitely not perfect, but it'll help me understand like, oh, I probably shouldn't talk about this, or maybe I should phrase that slightly differently, and it kind of gives me an idea to think about my communication better myself. I guess it's kind of like what you're saying, a mirror, it's kind of being a mirror, so I can see some of the flaws in the way that I was going to communicate something before I did.
That's right. And I have an example in the book about a series of difficult conversations I had with my team where I role played with AI in order to feel more comfortable and more confident. And it wasn't just any language model. I created a custom chatbot to serve as a co-CEO to me in my business. So I programmed it, or I grounded it in our business values, company values, our history, our staffing, our client personas. So when I had those conversations, I could describe generally, not confidentially, the details of the people I was speaking to. And then the AI would help me ensure that I was showing up in alignment with my values and my company values. And we talk a lot about the importance of aligning AI language models to human values. We don't talk as much about how humans need to align themselves to their own values. And that's something that actually AI can help us achieve.
Give me an example of an instance where someone is not aligned with their own values when they communicate, like the style is just not right or something's off.
It happens frequently when someone works with a very large or within a very large organization, and they have corporate talking points that they have to communicate. The more senior you become in an organization, the more likely you are to be handed a series of corporate talking points that have been vetted by legal, and it's your job to cascade those messages down within the organization. And a lot of the senior executives I work with will feel very uncomfortable either recording those messages or repeating those messages because they say, that just doesn't sound like me. Right. And what we work on, whether I work on it with them one-on-one in our coaching engagement, or if they use AI to help them with it, is we determine, what are your values? What is your communication style? Now, how do we take that corporate message, stay true to it from a legal perspective, but also change some of the words, include some personal stories so that it sounds more like you, which means you'll be more authentic when delivering it, which means you'll be more effective at spreading the word.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's important. How do we measure how effective we are in spreading this information, and how like our communication is changing over time with the use of AI or not using AI?
Communication is such a hard tool or topic to measure. It's much easier when you can look at the delta between, X and Y, and you can see, okay, we moved the needle forward. With communication, it's much harder to measure. That's one of the reasons that these are called soft skills, even though they're so incredibly important. Some of the ways I would say that you can measure the effectiveness is measure the time it takes for someone to take action on something you've emailed them to do. So if historically it would take a week before something was done, and now it takes a day, well, you also have to check, are they now using AI for greater efficiency? And that's why it took a day. But if you look at all other factors being equal, are people more receptive and to your message and take action more quickly on your message. Those are some of the ways in which we can measure the effectiveness of the communication.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think that's an interesting approach there. What are some of the pitfalls that people easily fall into, like the habits that I guess they may pick up when they start to use ChatGPT or Gemini or something like that to help them draft their communications?
It's been really interesting to see the mistakes that people make, and I find one of other people's most favorite things to do with me is share the bloopers. When somebody makes a mistake, such as copying and pasting a message from ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini into an email and forgetting to remove the instructions and the follow-up offer of help.
Yes.
Do you want? I can further refine this. So they copy and paste the whole thing and send it. Certainly.
But what's even funnier is when they put
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
prompt in there too. If they put the prompt that they use as well.
I know. Somebody emailed me. It was actually a very helpful email that she wrote, and I could tell she used an AI for it because she had very kindly and respectfully removed my name and just wrote name in there. And then when she copied and pasted it, it still said name in brackets. So I knew that it was AI. But at the same time, it was a helpful email, and I appreciated that she did it. But the challenge here and in these examples is not a challenge of technology. It's a challenge of lazy communication, or I would say impatient communication, because lazy and impatient are two completely different motivators. And I don't want to say it's lazy when it could simply be impatient. We're not taking the time to proof our work before we send it. And again, that's not an issue with technology. We've had people who haven't proofed their work for generations. It's just that now it's easier than ever to quickly send something on without stopping to pause and breathe, evaluate, use critical thinking to say, A, is this accurate? B, is this authentic? C, is it effective? And so we still have to apply that critical thinking process, because the more senior we become, the more we're responsible for a much larger range of issues, and the more mistakes can cost us in our professional career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that is maybe a good tip for the listeners out there, something that I've started doing recently, is because I found myself, I don't know if it's just rushing through things or whatever, but as I read the response, I think I'm proofreading it because I'm reading it, but I'm reading it really fast and I kind of skim over it more, and I don't intentionally do that. So I found that I have to read it out loud in order to really understand that it's saying the way that I would say it, or it's saying the words that I really want to convey. Because when I read it out loud, I also hear it, and it kind of makes a difference there than if I just kind of read it in my head.
Exactly. That's a technique that I've always taught, especially when someone is either proofreading, because that's how you find there's a missing word, or if you're practicing something that you're going to deliver through your voice. If you're practicing a presentation, read it out loud. And that's where you discover words you've put in, like moreover, which are words that we just don't use in normal casual communication. So by reading them out loud, you both find the errors and you're able to make sure it's written for the ear and not for the eye, if in fact you're delivering the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. How important is it to frame the communication to the audience, knowing your audience?
One of my favorite sayings, I didn't write this, but I put this in my first book, Speak with Impact, is writing a speech or message without your audience in mind is like writing a love letter and titling it "To Whom It May Concern." It just doesn't work. So the
Right.
more you know the audience, the more effective you are at imparting a message that will change behavior. And I believe every time you communicate, you have an opportunity to change the way people think or act or feel. But you won't be able to do that unless you know who you're speaking to, so that you know what language to speak, whether it's technical versus non-technical, or English versus French or Arabic or Hebrew. So the more we know about our audience, the more effectively we're able to tailor messages that don't just resonate with us, but resonate with them. And that's what inspires them to take action.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I think it's hard sometimes to consider the audience when you're writing. It's a lot easier when you're in person, I think, because you're looking at them and you can kind of Like if I'm giving a talk to like I teach part-time at college, so I'm teaching to my college students. I have a very different audience there than if I'm talking to executives, in a budget meeting or something. And I see those, so I communicate differently. But when I'm typing an email, sometimes I don't even think about like who I'm sending this to, and I have to pause and like kind of go back. Um, do you have any techniques for helping you recall or focus on written words versus in person and speeches?
It simply should be part of your thoughtful process that you go through when you craft a message. And before anyone writes a message, a speech, a presentation, an email, I always recommend they ask 3 questions. Who's your audience? What's your goal? And why you? Why you, meaning why do you care about the work that you do? And once you answer those 3 questions, all of a sudden you've framed your mindset in a way that now you're in a better frame of mind to be able to craft a persuasive message. And you can do that in 30 seconds. Sometimes I'm on my way to a networking event. As I'm walking into the room, I'm thinking, okay, who's my audience? What's my goal? Why me? Why do I care? Okay, now I know how I'm going to introduce myself. So it's simply a habit, a discipline, just like you spell check before you send. While you're writing, ask yourself, who's my audience? What's my goal? Why me?
Yeah, I think that's very good. And it goes back to one of the problems I've seen when people copying and pasting things out of AI responses, where they'll have like a bad message to deliver, or bad news, they're going to give you, but it's very upbeat. The tone is like very happy and upbeat, and it just seems off. Like there's something, and a lot of times that happens. Is there a way that we can craft maybe the prompt different or something different whenever we're giving bad news versus good news?
It's all about how we're framing the instructions that we're
Mhm.
giving. And I've been developing something I call your authentic voice blueprint. And I call it AVI, authentic voice intelligence. So it's a play on words on AGI. You can achieve AVI, authentic voice intelligence, through this questionnaire where you're very intentional about your values, your communication style, your favorite words, words you like, words you don't like synergy. I hate the word synergy. So I always want to avoid that word in my language. And you can use that questionnaire to create your own authentic voice prompt that you then use to evaluate a message. And what I would do in this situation is to take that authentic voice prompt and then say, help me deliver this difficult message in a way that respects the tone of the message itself. So you get something, it sounds overly cheerful. You say, okay, this is too cheerful. Make it less cheerful. It's recognizing that it's a dialogue that we're having, not a one-time set of instructions. And that's something that I've had to teach a lot of non-technical professionals who are using AI for the first time. And they try it out and they don't realize you can't just have the first prompt get you what you need. You have to iterate and practice. And if you don't like what you get, ask AI to make it better by just telling it what you don't like. And it's that collaborative process with AI that a lot of people need to learn.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. How do you go about making sure that the authentic use of I guess, maintains that trust and authenticity? Because a lot of times trust is really hard to build. And once you have trust, it's really easy to take away, with one misstep or one problem that you have. How do you make sure that you maintain that trust that you've built, or even use AI to build trust?
What's really interesting is since my book came out, we're now starting to see new studies coming out about the risk of using AI to communicate. And one study in particular from last year demonstrated, so 2025, demonstrated that when supervisors over relied on AI for their routine communication, their subordinates viewed them as less genuine, less knowledgeable, less caring. So it creates that lack of trust that you're alluding to. And in my book, I created a framework called the AI Authenticity Loop that
Okay.
teaches professionals how to communicate a message in a way that maintains their authentic voice and tone. And the key component of that, and by the way, your listeners can find that loop and download a resource guide at allisonshapira.com/AI, which I'm sure they will see written in the show notes. That loop is a way to remind you that communication starts and ends with you. You draft the first message, then you have AI help you edit it. Then you come in and review it. Then you can practice with AI. And ultimately, you deliver the message. You're responsible for the words that come out of your mouth or from your email address. And the key concept of this loop is that it's not about keeping the human in the loop. The human is the loop. And once you reframe your mindset like that, now you're going to use AI in a way that supports you but doesn't replace you, because it starts and ends with you.
I think that's really good. Yeah, I'm definitely going to link that in the show notes too, so people can go to geekleader.com and click on the link there to get to your toolkit. Also in that toolkit, you talk about the ACE model of communication. What exactly is that?
The ACE model of communication I developed after over 20 years of teaching leadership communication and realizing I kept coming back to the same 3 components of communication that are critical as we move into positions of leadership. Authenticity, which means speaking and acting in alignment with your values and beliefs. Clarity, which is not about being a subject matter expert. It's about taking all that knowledge in your head and putting it into clear, concise, compelling language that your target audience can understand. And third, E stands for energy, recognizing that the moment you start to speak, even before you speak, your energy is communicating. And yes, I know content is king, but it doesn't rule alone. It rules together with the energy behind your words. And so energy recognizes that you can intentionally tap into a powerful, engaging energy, voice, and tone that takes the content, lifts it off the page, and makes it come alive in the hearts and minds of your audience. So that's the ACE model: authenticity, clarity, and energy, which you can use every single day.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And, a lot of times we forget about, how important our audience is to the clarity part. When we think we're explaining things that everybody understands, I have to, step back and think, well, I use an acronym. Does this acronym make sense to someone in finance or whoever I'm talking to at the moment? And if not, then I need to think of a different analogy that I can explain this to, or what's an analogy that I can use? I use analogies all the time and metaphors all the time, because I find that, they, cross different disciplines. Like, you can always use the analogy of like, you have to sometimes cut things out of your life so that other things can grow. You prune a tree, right? You want to prune the branches so that something else can grow. So if I want to really focus on my physical fitness, then I need to cut out video games or something like that, whatever it is at the time, and understand that you can use those analogies through other things that you're working on to transcend different environments. What are some other tips that you have for leaders, moving up in their career, that are trying to communicate things, and now maybe just now they have the first opportunity to really share outside of their team, and they get to take what they're learning about in technology, what they're doing on their team, and explain it to marketing or to sales or to finance or somebody else?
It's a great exercise for someone to take a message or an initiative that they're working on, and as an exercise, identify 3 separate audiences: marketing, leadership, auditing, whatever the department is they're speaking to, and identify how they would redo the message, how they would change the message for each audience, and then even put that into an AI tool and ask it for feedback on how effectively you're adapting that message. And one creative use of AI is actually to come up with metaphors that the target audience would resonate with. So the creative part of AI is that it can help you adapt your message for different audiences. What I would say overall is to recognize communication is a skill. It's not something you're born with. Just like nobody's born knowing how to code. Now, they might be really good at coding, but it doesn't mean they were born as a kid being a great coder. They learned it, they just learned it quickly. Well, any single one of us, every one of us, can learn to become a powerful communicator. It's a skill that we build with practice and feedback. So taking the time to learn how to craft a message, how to cater it to different audiences, how to deliver it in an engaging, authentic way. And then what's a repeatable framework that you can use to do that every single day, recognizing every time you speak, you become a more effective speaker. You're building repetition, building your muscles. And that's really what my first book, Speak with Impact, is about.
How can bosses encourage their team to become better leaders? What are some practical things that we can do today to help people be better speakers, better communicators, and sharing with their team?
Bosses can empower their teams, their employees to become more effective leaders and communicators by giving them opportunities to speak. So instead of the boss running the meeting, the boss can say to the three people, okay, each one of you are going to run the meeting. You'll talk about X, you'll talk about Y, someone else will talk about Z. And it's your job to prepare something to communicate. So don't walk into the room and say, all right, John, why don't you lead the meeting today? Right? I don't like that style. I like to prepare in advance, but let someone know, listen, I want you to run this meeting today or next week, and give them an opportunity to shine. And then also give them an opportunity to learn the skills to do it well. Or if you give them that opportunity and they don't do well, you can say, okay, how do you think that went? What if we gave you some resources so that you could do better next time? Whether it's internal training or external coach or workshop, but it's recognizing that we want to give people the opportunities to shine and then give them the tools so they can do it effectively.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. I love the idea of your team meetings, maybe have someone else run them, but obviously give them prep time to do it, and maybe an outline or something they can kind of build off of, and give them an opportunity. That's great feedback. Great advice too. One of the things that I used to do when I was a new manager and I had a small team of about 6 people that reported to me, we used to do one Friday a month. We called a brown bag lunch and learn. You bring your food in, and we would all have a lunch and learn. And I would make sure each person on my team had the opportunity to teach something that they've learned during that month to the rest of the team. So it gives them an opportunity to teach, everybody else an opportunity to learn, and it almost forces the team member to speak in front of people, but also to learn a new skill that they get to show off, or share with somebody. And at first they did not like it. I'll be honest with you, but they all got better at it. And at the end, they were looking forward to seeing their team, do it, and talking to them about it. And I felt like it just gave us a better sense of teamwork as well.
That's a great example of giving people an opportunity to practice a new skill and having them do it or letting them do it on a topic they're passionate about, as opposed to just choosing a topic and forcing them to speak on it. So it's starting with something that they enjoy, which leads to them probably doing a better job as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. What are we missing? What else do people need to know about using AI to communicate authentically and honestly and clearly?
I want people to recognize that right now we're rushing to focus on the efficiency of AI. How do we use AI to do more with less and work faster? And we can't do that at the expense of human connection, because we are not robots working with other robots. I mean, we might at some point be humans working with robots, but right now we're humans connecting with other humans, and it's human behavior that drives the effectiveness of our work, not the technology. And so I want people, as they're adopting more and more generative AI into their work, to ask themselves, how is AI helping me be a better human, a more authentic leader? Authentic as in helping me speak and act more in alignment with my values and beliefs. So how can AI prompt me to be a better human? And with that mindset, and then taking the time to pause and breathe and be intentional in how we use AI, that's how we're going to get the efficiencies of AI and do it in a way that doesn't jeopardize our relationships with other colleagues and coworkers, and helps us maintain the trust and credibility within the office, which we need in order to be successful in our work.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Allison, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you sharing with us about AI and how to be more authentic as communicators and leaders to our team and to people outside of our team, and understanding, the whole ACE mentality and model that you've worked up. And it's really important. And I really appreciate you from coming on and telling people about that. How can people learn more, pick up a copy of your book, and, connect with you if they want coaching or some help?
I encourage people to reach out to me first on LinkedIn, connect with me there. I'm very active. My website, AllisonShapira.com. And then /AI will get you the free resources from the book. You can also buy the book on Amazon. It is in hardcover and Kindle, and very soon will be coming out in audio version as well. So however you consume content, you will be able to consume this book. And I know that it's going to be invaluable during this very specific inflection point in how human development is moving society forward. And that's what my book is intended to help you achieve.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I'll link those two in the show notes at geekleader.com so people can go there and click through to the toolkit, the book, your LinkedIn, and all that stuff. So it'll all be in our show notes at geekleader.com. Again, Allison, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, John. Great to speak with you.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.